I'm Amanda Leitner, and welcome to Rochester Rising, where we amplify the stories of Rochester entrepreneurs. Welcome to episode 189 of the podcast today. Today, I got the opportunity to sit down and chat with local business owner Katrina Pulham, who owns Air Insanity in Southeast Rochester along with her husband. For those of you not familiar with Air Insanity, it's a trampoline park along with many other offerings, including a cafe, dodgeball, Ninja Warrior obstacle course. We recorded this podcast via Zoom in late July, on July 24th, which actually ended up being the 2-year anniversary of when Air Insanity opened its doors. So Katrina was kind enough to join me via Zoom from Air Insanity for this recording. Katrina is a Kasson native, and she grew up working in the Rochester area, but also spent some time living in Texas and North Carolina. She started her career working in banking and finance, and she also did a lot of other things along the way, including building race cars and teaching women's archery. But once her and her husband started a family, they recognized that they wanted to do something different that was their own. On the podcast today, Katrina talks about the 3 years they spent doing market research for Air Insanity and writing their business plan. And now they've been in business for just a bit over 2 years here in Rochester, in the Southeast Rochester region along Highway 14. So on the podcast today with Katrina, we chat about many things, including her advice for running a business with their spouse and what the COVID-19 pandemic and shutdown for 3.5 months was like for their business, and how they navigated opening back up Air Insanity in mid-June. So stay tuned today for a great conversation with Katrina. So here at Rochester Rising, we are the storytelling arm of our partner organization, Collider. Collider is a 501c3 nonprofit based in Rochester, Minnesota that supports Rochester entrepreneurs through co-working space, storytelling, events, and education. You can find out more about Collider by visiting that website at collider.mn. That's collider.mn. Our Rochester Rising podcast comes out every Wednesday. You can catch it wherever you listen into podcast content, including on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our YouTube channel. We also have a second podcast called Ecosystem North, where we talk with entrepreneurial ecosystem builders, so those supporting entrepreneurs. This podcast comes out every Friday, and you can find it as well wherever you listen into podcast content, including on our YouTube channel. So the best thing you can do to help out with Rochester Rising with Collider is to subscribe. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our newsletter. That is the most you can do to us to help amplify stories of Rochester entrepreneurs. And also stay up to date with all of our latest educational programming and other initiatives to support entrepreneurship here in Rochester. All right, so now on to the podcast today with Katrina Pulham and Air Insanity. Well, yeah, thanks for doing this. For giving your time today on a Friday afternoon.
Yes, no, absolutely.
So I just wanted to start by talking about a little bit of your background. So where are you from originally? Are you from Rochester? And if not, how did you get here?
Yeah, so I am from Kasson, just outside Rochester. So, grew up working in Rochester and Kasson. Everybody, Rochester is your hometown because it's where you come for everything. So I grew up around here. I've left twice in my life now. So I moved to Texas for a year, and then I actually came back. And then I moved to North Carolina for 7 years and lived in North Carolina, and then came back again.
Nice. Where did you live out in North Carolina? I have a lot of family. I'm from the mid-Atlantic, so I have a lot of family in the Carolinas.
Yeah, so I lived around Lake Norman area in Huntersville, just north of Charlotte. And then I moved up more towards the mountains and lived just outside of Winston-Salem area.
Okay. Yeah, I have family in Greenville, Charlotte, and Boone.
Boone, yeah.
Yeah, my one cousin, she loves it there. She went there for college to Appalachia State and just stayed there.
Yeah, that's the funniest thing that I learned, what you just said, living in North Carolina. We were taught that it's the Appalachian Mountains. Oh, in North Carolina, it is the Appalachian Mountains, and they will correct you.
I guess I never noticed that, but yeah. We wanted to talk about Air Insanity, which you're co-owner of with your family, but I wanted to understand a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey first. So have you always been entrepreneurial, or how did this kind of spark get started?
No, so most of my background is actually in banking and finance. So I started when I was 17 as a part-time teller downtown Rochester, and then while I was going to school, kind of kept there. Went to full-time, became a personal banker at one point in life. Went into business banking. I became a licensed mortgage loan officer and did mortgages for a while. Transferred into compliance was my last banking role. So I oversaw all the bankers, making sure everyone followed the rules, basically. So banking and finance is where I always was. I've kind of veered off all sorts of random paths. So I actually built race cars for a while too. I got involved in NASCAR, and that's what brought me to North Carolina.
Interesting. So, I never talked to a race car. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's weird for a woman anyways, but I really got into it through friends just locally around here, and then ended up moving to North Carolina. So I worked for a race team out there temporarily, lived out there, and then kind of went back into the banking world. I also love to teach women's archery, oddly enough. So I, for a while, was really passionate about that in the outdoors. And so I did a lot in the outdoors with women and introducing them to the outdoors. And then when me and my husband got married and we're starting a family, we just kind of both were at a part in our life where we wanted to do something different. We wanted to do something that was our own and really focus on our future and what that looked like. And one day we were in Utah and at a trampoline park, because that's where my husband's from. And we were there with our kids and we were like, gosh, this is just awesome. We need something like this in our town. And so we spent 3 years just meeting with people, traveling around, looking at other parks, going to conventions, learning about the industry, learning about what it was going to take, what we wanted it to look like, put together a business plan that's probably 62 pages, I think. It's a pretty big business plan because we, like I said, spent 3 years working on it. And then, and now here we are with this one dream pushing forward. And now we found ourselves, this is our passion. We really enjoy creating something. We really enjoy creating and designing something and seeing it come to life. And so now we're finding ourselves doing it again in a smaller version, but moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. And I could see a lot of those pieces coming together to do this. You know, obviously the financial and banking background, the archery, I think too, because you're like, this is a very active thing, in building things. So it's certainly all kind of coming together. And you guys certainly did a lot of market research, it sounds like.
Yeah, we did. We definitely did. And then my husband's background is more construction and engineering. So he's been in the trade show industry and built giant trade show exhibits for like museums and different things like that and big events. And he consults for another company right now, helping design like custom furniture. So he does 3D drawings in AutoCAD and really enjoys drawing things and putting things together and making something too. So I think it was kind of a mixture of both of us that were able to put this together. Yeah,
absolutely. That's so important, having all the pieces, right?
Yeah.
Successful. So you're almost at your 2-year anniversary for opening, right? Was it in September of 2018?
July 24th. Yep.
So today?
Yeah, today. It is today. Yeah.
Congratulations. I don't know why I thought it was September. I must have found an article that got written in September.
July 24th, actually. So yeah, it is today. It's interesting.
I wasn't sure either. I had to check my calendar here to see if it was the 20th. So, well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I feel like the first 2 years are really the hardest, and like COVID hit. I mean, this is just an extraordinary second part of that journey for you guys. So, congratulations on doing that and getting to where you are. But I guess for people who haven't been to Air Insanity, how would you kind of describe it, and what are the kind of attractions that you have for people?
Here, we'll just show people who haven't been here. It's much easier. So we have our cafe. We're one of only a few parks that are actually dug down into the ground. So we have a completely open concept. So here is our open court. In the back, we have dodgeball. We have a Ninja Warrior obstacle course. We have a warp wall that's 3 tiers. So it's different levels for different kids and different, advancement as well. So dodgeball, jump tower, battle beam, basketball lanes, and then our open court. And we do have a Nerf battlefield in the back as well.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So what's your target age for kids who come in?
So we do tot times for kids that are younger. So you probably saw my 3-year-old that's been running around. He lives here basically with us right now. But we do tot times that are only 5 and under for kids that are his age. And then we do open jump, which typically anywhere from 6 years old to 18 is probably our most common age group. But we get adults, we get grandparents, we get everybody in here jumping. So,
well, yeah, that's what I was wondering, if adults can jump on the trampolines, because that sounds like a lot of fun. Definitely some stress relief there. Yeah, I remember we never had anything as cool as this, but we had like discovery zones. I don't know if that was like something that was outside of the East Coast, but yeah, definitely not like this. It had like mazes and stuff and like ball pits but yeah.
Yeah, we haven't had much in Rochester. I mean, growing up, we didn't have anything really for kids to do besides go to the swimming pool. That's the only thing that we had. Skyline Raceway and was out there, and that's really about it.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy because Rochester, I feel, is a really family-centered town.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to ask you a little bit about too. So, how did you decide to open this in Rochester, and kind of what was that process like, even in terms of, it's a fairly big space. What was it like to find a space this size?
So hard. That was, we were fortunate enough to have a partner that one of our investors that helped us get going. He works on real estate and land development, and his knowledge is the only reason why we were able to push through and figure everything out. But on our own, there's no one that helps small businesses in Rochester. As crazy as that is, there is no department or person. There's Ready, but that's more of just a board of people who work in banking and in different things, and they come together and they help one sector, but they don't really help small businesses. The chamber, they're getting a lot better, but when we first started, they really couldn't help you with anything. They're more of, once you are a business, we'll work with you on different resources and connect people. And so, yeah, that was the biggest challenge. And then finding a building in Rochester, you see all these empty buildings and you think it would be easy to get into these buildings, and it's not, because we chose not to franchise and to just start on our own and have our own idea and our own concepts and our own model. We learned fast that a lot of those open big buildings, the only way you can get into them is if you are a big franchise. And everybody on the block basically has to approve you to come into that space. And that was something we didn't know. Like the Sports Authority building, it sat open for a while, and we tried to get in there. We weren't approved to go in there because we weren't a franchise. And so then we looked at another building. We learned we couldn't go in there because we weren't a franchise and we didn't have the season concept. And then also because we were a trampoline park and nobody in Rochester understood what a trampoline park was and what we were trying to do, it was really hard to work with a lot of the people who do own the buildings and even with the city, trying to explain to them what we were trying to do and for them to believe in us that we were going to be a viable enough business for them to trust what we were doing and let us come into their building and do what we needed to do.
Mm-hmm. So you had to partly provide a lot of education.
A lot.
Doing. Yeah, it's funny. I was just, I had to moderate this webinar yesterday with an angel investor, but basically someone asked the question about, well, what funding exists? I mean, we're talking Minnesota as a whole between $15,000 and $75,000. And that's not a lot, but like if you're a person, that's a lot. Like, how do you, especially if you don't have that background with a bank, like you were saying, you guys were lucky and had, a friend, an investor, but it kind of leaves everybody, what they'd call pre-seed funding. We don't have any. You're expected to kind of go to a bank. And if you don't have that relationship or the line of credit, I mean, you know better than me the terminology around it, but if you don't have that capability to have that trust built up in the bank, you're kind of out of luck.
Yeah. So one of the really interesting things about our story, and I love our two investors more than anything in this world because they are the reason that we're here today. So we maybe had $10,000 to our name total when we started Air Insanity. We were not in a spot where a bank would give us $1.5 million is what it costs to start this. So no bank was going to give the two of us that kind of money as much as I would have loved that. But we were able, we made phone call after phone call, called every single person that we had met randomly, people that we kind of knew, people that, might be interested that we knew invested in other projects. And we ended up finding one person who believed us enough to take a look at what we were doing. And then we ended up finding, he actually reached out to somebody else he knew because he couldn't do it alone, and found another person that believed in us as well. They were both younger guys that have been very successful in life and have families, and knew what we were trying to do here and believed in us enough to move forward, and use their leverage with the banks to help us get the funding that we needed, and the resources that we needed to push forward. So,
yeah.
I think everyone needs that. You need help. It's not, we need those resources and you need people to believe in you in order to do anything today.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is certainly not a solo sport. Like you can't do it by yourselves, and you often can't finance it by yourself. And that's I would say that's one of the top questions people come to us about is how do I find these investors? And it's you have to just continue putting yourself out there and talking to people, I think, Yeah. I don't know. There's no easy solution to it.
No. And you have to be okay with no's because we got a lot of those. And we hit so many different types of roadblocks. We actually, the building we're in right now, we signed the contract and there's 3 owners on the building. Well, one of the other owners signed a contract with the school the exact same day that we signed our contract, and we lost the building because they believed the school was a better option for this building than we were. So we went back to the drawing board, completely devastated on the day that we thought we were signing and moving forward, and spent another year and a half, 6 months looking for other buildings, looking at options, considering possibly building because we couldn't find a building, and across the board trying to figure it out. And then the school actually fell through. And then those people came back to us and asked if we were still interested. And at the time it was no, I don't want your building because you gave it away, but we had no other option. And so we were yeah, we'll definitely take it. And we signed, and we were reluctant on it all, but it all worked out in the end.
Yeah. So this was 3.5 years of build up to get into the building.
Yeah.
That's
it was
perseverance.
A lot of ups and then a lot of downs and then a lot of ups and then a lot of downs. So it was almost surreal when it finally all was done because it was kind of we didn't want to get our hopes up because we had been knocked down so many times that we were too afraid to be excited, if that makes sense. So we kind of just stayed monotone about everything. We did really do a lot because we were afraid if we got excited, something was going to happen and we would be backwards 10 steps. So we just kind of floated. And then about 2 weeks after we were open and things were working and things were going good, that's when we finally like felt some sort of like pride and relief in what we had done.
It's definitely have to be persistent, and they tell you never to get too stuck or your heart set on something, because it could be like you might have to pivot so fast or like go with another option. Oh man, so you have a lot of lessons.
Pivoting is a great word, because we had to do that so many times in our contracts, our lease negotiation. That took almost 6 months.
Wow.
Of back and forth, and that lease changed almost every single time it was sent. It was a constant back and forth battle over simple words, things that were snuck in and then we had to remove, or things that were, it was just all over the place. But 6 months and constantly trying to figure out, okay, well, we can't do it this way. So how can we make it work? Because we can't do this. Let's come up with a new way to look at this and rewrite it again.
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
So this is a family business. Aaron Sandy is a family business. Along with your investors, you run it with your husband.
Yeah.
So what strategies do you use kind of having a family-owned business, or what advice do you have? Because I know a lot of people who run a business with their spouse, and I'm always interested on how they kind of navigate that.
It is definitely tough. We own our business together. Obviously live together. We've built a house together. We built this together. We did all of our own construction, and my husband GC'd this whole project. So we actually fully built this with our own hands. Now today we operate it together, and now we've survived COVID together. So I feel like it's kind of like a bring it world. We got it covered at this point. But really it's just, we're all different people too. And my husband and I have different styles and different views on certain things, and we do our best to work together, and we do our best to try to make sure that, we're not bringing it home to work home. It's impossible, really. I mean, it's the only time that we have to talk about things is when we're at home, not here focused on work. So it's really just a balance. You try to do the best you can. Every day isn't peachy, but you smile anyways, and you move along. And as crazy as it is, you would think we'd be at our max, but we're actually opening another business together right now too. And it's a much smaller version of this, and we're just doing something just kind of as our own passion together too. So that's coming, and I really don't know. You just kind of keep going. I think it's like everything. Like you just kind of, things are challenging, but if you stop and you really focus on them, then it'll be worse. If you just keep moving and you keep moving forward, the little things kind of just go away.
We all know that we've been in COVID and that small businesses have been severely affected. We talked right in the beginning in March sometime, right when you guys had closed. I'm not sure if you had, I think you had closed at that point, in mid-March or late March, but what was that like for your business, and what kind of decisions did you have to make during the time when you were shut down? So you were shut down from like mid-March to mid-June.
Yeah, the shutdown was so hard because we ended up being shut down for 3.5 months. But when we first heard we were shutting down, it was 2 weeks. Shut down for 2 weeks, let us get some things together, 2 weeks. So we were like, okay, all right, we can do that. We got it. 2 weeks. There's a lot we wanted to do around here, and a lot of things we can, like repainting and doing the flooring and revive some things. So we were like, okay, well, let's work really hard these 2 weeks and knock it out the park and give everybody something fresh to come back to. So we worked our butt off that first 2 weeks. All of us girls that are used to sitting around being managers, our arms were so sore. We changed every single spring in our entire trampoline park, which is thousands of springs. And so we did it in less than a week's time. But it was a lot of work. We redesigned our entire ninja course, took everything down. We completely repainted, the park and a lot of things, and redid the flooring. And then it was like, we were all excited to open back up, and then we heard, nope, another 2 weeks. So we were like, okay, well, what do we do now? And then it was another 2 weeks, then another 2 weeks, another 2 weeks, another 2 weeks for us. So like I said, 3.5 months. We worked really hard at doing everything, got it done right away. And then it was just kind of a stagnant, just trying to make sure. We had to obviously readjust. We kept our 2 managers on most of the time, more out of disrespect for them too. And we had finally just gotten to a point where we had managers to rely on, and could actually breathe as owners and step out and feel comfortable stepping out of the door when people were in here. So it was hard for us, making sure that they were taken care of too during all of it. We would just, we created a new membership program. We started looking into different softwares because we were just used to what we were doing. So we thought, oh, well, people were reaching out. Now's a good time to reach out back to them. So we started looking at our programs and just seeing what we could do better, and trying to revise things and just waiting, sitting around waiting to find out when we were going to open. That was the hardest.
So at least some silver lining, you got to take some time to think about things that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. But, obviously would have preferred to stay open and let people come in and enjoy the space.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. We actually brought in our bean bags and set up bean bags in here one day just for something to do, because we all just needed a break from staring at computers and even thinking about what we were going to do next or when we were going to open. So
yeah. So you've got to open back up in mid-June.
The last week.
Like we were talking before we recorded, you're in kind of this interesting space where it was like the issue with the gyms, trying to figure out where they sit, and then, as a youth sports exercise facility. So what was that like to kind of wade through that information, figure out if you can open, do you feel there was help, or what was that like along the way?
Such a mess. I was going to get us classified whichever way meant I could open my doors, because we're youth sports, we are fitness. And so it was like, well, gosh, we're kind of, I don't know where we fit anymore. We're entertainment, but we're fitness, but we're, kids. So it was kind of a mess trying to figure all that out. For trampoline parks, we relied a lot on the Trampoline Park Association too. We're a member of that, and it's kind of all the parks. Since we opened Air Insanity too, my husband actually helped another guy open a park in Wisconsin. And so since we've done that, they're open to and operating in central Wisconsin, and we've just become really good friends. So he opened his own park without franchising too. So we lean on each other for a lot of things on what to do and how to do it and what's next. And so we formed a lot of friendships with other people in other parks, people in Wisconsin Dells and people up in the cities and around, just trying to figure out how we as trampoline parks function. Because we're a very small community.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like you said, not going the franchise route and striking out on your own, there's not as much support, so you have to, band together as small business owners in kind of that space to support each other.
Yeah, and that happened even locally. Like that was one of the greatest things I think that came out of COVID is people who maybe considered us competitors, or I don't know, we're all in this together. And I think COVID really brought everyone together, because business owners that I hadn't spoke to but probably should have were calling me saying, what are you guys doing? What do we need to do? And I started doing the same thing, like, reaching out to Velocity and other people in our community and just trying to figure out, how do we get through this together? What are you guys doing? How are you getting through this? And that was the one great thing that came out of it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a positive thing, working together, supporting each other. When people come to Air Insanity now, what should they expect as far as safety and what they need to do and what they can do in the space now?
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned pre-COVID is that we were prepared for COVID before COVID was even here. We cleaned every single night. And that's always been, safety and cleanliness is huge here, because we didn't want to be a children's facility that parents didn't feel comfortable bringing their kids to. And there's lots of viruses and kids are sweaty and gross and all sorts of things in here. So we clean every single night. We kind of always cleaned during the day too, but it was more of a spot touch-ups, like where we saw things were dirty, we'd clean. Now we just expect things to always be dirty, and we just always clean. So we're always walking around and making sure, things are cleaned with disinfectant during the day now when people are in here. And then every night, same thing. We mop the entire trampoline court with disinfectant. Every attraction, basically, every single night. And we did that pre-COVID. And then we also have a fogging machine. Same thing. We had that pre-COVID that we use like on our Ninja Warrior course and our climbing wall and our foam pits and the places that you can't clean with disinfectant. Now was a citywide mandate, mask mandate. Now we're in a statewide mask mandate. So when people come into the park, they do need to wear a mask. And then if they're out jumping and exercising, they do not have to wear a mask. So that's the big change right now is that mask mandate and letting people know how that works in here.
So I wanted to ask you too, I think we've all on a personal level had different strategies to get through this time of extreme stress, extreme isolation. What kind of worked for you to help kind of just get through these past couple of months?
Yeah, I laugh, but it's the simplest thing. It is a hot tub. I begged my husband for a hot tub before all this had happened and before winter even, because I wanted it for winter just to get through winter and always working and going home and never having daylight. I was like, and I don't have time to take vacation. So I just was like, just want a hot tub in my backyard to just sit in and relax. And I sit in that thing almost every single night. It's how I decompress. It's how I just kind of shut out the world, stare at the stars, relax. I don't have any worries. And then I go to bed with a clear mind and I think about things. It's kind of just my space right now.
Sounds amazing to me. I had an inflatable one last year, which I would not recommend in the upper Midwest because you can pretty much only use it from May till like the beginning of September because it can't be outside when it's like below freezing, which is like September. Yeah. So that was not as enjoyable. That did not go up this year because it was just so much of a pain. But I hear you. I would love that. It sounds very relaxing to me.
It worked. It was the one thing that I can definitely say that truly de-stresses me on a daily basis. Other than that, it's really just trying to not let things get to you either. There's so much happening right now in the world, and there's so many crazy points of views and people, and everything is just kind of blown out of proportion. And it's just trying to spend time with my family, trying to just not stress about things and just try to focus on, one, keeping your business going, two, starting my new business, trying to just make sure that I'm making good choices for myself. And that's really all I can control, and moving on.
Yeah, I think that's a key lesson for all of us to let go of what we cannot control. And it's so hard to learn. Yeah,
it is. That was the hardest thing, I think, opening a business too, is naturally I'm a people pleaser. And so knowing that, you're not going to please everybody was so hard for me to let go of and not let things get to me and bother me so much. And just kind of know that I'm doing my best, and that's where I need to be. And as long as I'm doing my best, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I feel like there are people who always want to be disgruntled too, and you just, I don't know, they just exist. There's nothing you can do.
I go do a good deed. That's my one thing. So whenever I feel really stressed or feel like, I'm just having a bad day, I try to do something good for someone else, and it makes me feel better. It makes me feel like, okay, I'm okay. I got this. Can go another day.
My dog is snoring in the background over here, so that's great. They like it that we're here, but they also like us to go. I have some final questions for you to kind of wrap up here. I know as entrepreneurs, we're all super busy, but is there anything you're reading or listening to right now that you'd want to share that you're enjoying?
Not necessarily that I'm reading or listening to. I've been listening to a lot of different podcasts and people's I guess, Facebook stories and things that people are doing. I like to find inspiration in other people. And right now, trying to keep Aaron Sandy running. Our new business that's starting is a coffee trailer. So it's called Due North Coffee Company, which is going to be a lot of fun. So focusing on that. And then learning about coffee is a big thing right now for me, and how to make coffee, which I find so interesting.
What's been one key resource that you felt was essential for Aaron Sanity?
Or through the pandemic, or just in general?
I think in general, any business resource, what was really useful either during starting it or during the pandemic that people should know about?
Yeah. At the start of it, I think friends and family were the biggest resource that we had, and the support that we needed to get started and to really push us and believe in us to keep moving. While we've been open, I think same thing. It's the community that's been our biggest resource. So reaching out to our schools and the different people. And then since pandemic, by far the Chamber of Commerce, the Rochester Chamber has been amazing through the pandemic, and just trying to keep business owners informed about resources, what's out there, programs that are coming, funds that were available, how to apply, how to understand mask mandate, how, what's happening at Mayo, what's happening, with the health of our community. And they've done a really great job keeping everybody informed. So that's been huge through the pandemic. Beyond that, there's not a lot of resources in Rochester for business owners. So it's really just relying on each other. And that's kind of what we've had to do.
So I feel like you already answered this one, but what is your favorite place to be at in Rochester? Where would you want to be?
Well, I'm going to say my trampoline park, but no. My favorite place to be in Rochester, besides my own business, which obviously I would choose, my favorite place is probably Quarry Hill. I love being outdoors and in nature, and I'm a big fisherman too, so I love the trout streams just outside of town in Whitewater. It's not Rochester, but I like spending time just kind of around the outskirts of the community too. So that's going to be my favorite by far. I think sometimes too, I get so busy in life that I like places that are quiet. So I'm always going to choose somewhere peaceful and outside. That's my favorite place to be.
Like your hot tub. I thought you were going to say your hot tub.
Yeah, that too. I do like my hot tub.
But Quarry Hill, I was just there last week. I ran through there, and it had been a while. But yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, it's a nice place to walk and just go with your family and wander. So yeah, I like it there.
It's usually pretty busy, but yeah.
Now it is. Right now it's very busy, yeah. Anything really to do outdoors is busy right now.
Yes, which is a good thing because people are getting outside and active. But yeah, you also want to exercise in caution.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that was my last question for you. I'll ask you for any final thoughts, and where is the best place? Where can people find you in person and online?
Well, in person, I basically live here at Aaron Sanity. So you can always find me at the trampoline park. I am here 24/7 all day, every day, especially right now. Other than that, you can find me at my email address, Katrina@aaronsandy.com. Other than that, I am open to helping people. One of the greatest things that helped us is somebody to listen to our ideas and point me in the direction to different people willing to help. Since opening my business, I've met a lot of people. I've made relationships with different banks and stuff, and kind of have an idea of some of the resources that are out there now. I'm really good at writing business plans. And I'm really good at marketing and creating brands. So I really have a passion for that. And I am always willing to help anybody and answer any questions. If somebody else is looking at doing something, if there's anything I can help them with.
I agree. That mentorship, that advice is so important and key. And now all the animals are are awake, and they were just eating some kind of food under my chair. So I don't know. They get restless after a while. But thank you so much for your time today, for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much to Katrina for taking time to chat with us today on the podcast. You can find Air Insanity in person, just bring your mask, on Highway 14. And you can also find more links to Air Insanity in our show notes. So I just wanted to remind everybody as well that Collider is hiring 3 part-time ecosystem navigators. The application for these ecosystem navigators will close on August 28th, and it's a really simple application. You just send a cover letter and your resume to hello@collider.mn. And you can find out more about these positions on the Collider website at collider.mn. So what are these ecosystem navigators? These are individuals. They will not be business consultants. They're more community connectors. These 3 part-time individuals will work within the female, Black, or Hispanic entrepreneurial communities in Rochester, Minnesota. This is for a pilot program with initial focus on these 3 communities, and success and data from this program could help provide additional support to expand the program in Rochester to support additional underserved groups. These 3 contract positions are funded for 15 months, starting in mid-September through mid-December 2021. There's a possibility that these programs or these positions would also be extended based on success of the program. These 3 contract positions will function as part of Collider's diversity, inclusion, and equity efforts to lower barriers to entrepreneurship in the Rochester ecosystem, reduce stressors and isolations associated with entrepreneurship, and give everyone with a good idea the network and framework to improve their chances of success. So the navigator's main responsibilities will be to identify and connect with small business owners or aspiring business owners operating within Rochester. They will actively listen and understand current business development or professional needs of the small business owners or aspiring business owners within Rochester. Again, these are not business consultants. They're more community connectors. And the navigators, finally, will identify local resources and tools that would meet the needs of these individuals, and they'd facilitate a connection to that resource. So you can find more information about this posting on the Collider website at collider.mn. And the application will close on August 28th. So we hope that those of you in Rochester who have a strong connection to the community and a passion to serve one of these 3 communities within our ecosystem will apply. And finally, we're always looking for sponsors for our Rochester Rising podcast. So if our mission to amplify the stories of Rochester entrepreneurs is something your business would support, let us know. You can find more information by submitting a sponsorship request through our website, or you can email us directly at rochesterrising@gmail.com. That's a wrap for the podcast today. Please subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen in so that you never miss a story of entrepreneurship and innovation coming out of Rochester, Minnesota. We'll see you here next week with a brand new episode.